Good morning, everybody. I'm here with Marty Higgins from Family Wealth. Got a unique situation to talk about today. Different profile than we've talked about in the past in the Financial Pathway series. This one is a little bit personal to me. And the scenario is, what do you do? How do you handle it? This is a sensitive topic. Let's say you're in your 50s or your 60s. You've got parents that might be in their late 70s. They could be in their 80s. And you've got different life scenarios. So you've got people, they've got heart issues, you've got dementia issues today. People are getting older, they're wearing down, and they can't manage the money the way that they've done for, let's say, 50, 60 years. Let's say you've got parents that have a little bit of money. Maybe they have two homes. You've got different assets. You've got maybe some country clubs, or you've got cars, or you've got boats, or whatever it is you have in life. And you have one person who has managed the money their entire life. And all of a sudden, let's say they can't handle it anymore. If you don't have anything in place, who's going to be able to step in? Like in my scenario, let's say I have to step in, but I can't because it hasn't been laid out for me. I don't know where anything is. I don't know what the assets are. I don't know how to manage things the way it's been managed for all these years. What do you do in that scenario? Because I'm sure there are many people out there that have been in that scenario. I know people who have been in that scenario and things don't always work out that great. There's a lot of confusion. What do you do? And what should you know, Marty? What do you think?
First of all, good morning. And this is an important topic. It happens more than you think. In fact, I have a call with a client this afternoon, and she mentioned to me in one of the meetings, I'm not remembering. I understand what you say when you said it, but I don't retain it. So she was uncomfortable with that. And I said, is it okay if I share that with your daughters, who one of them is a client of mine? And she said, yes. So we actually had both daughters come in for a meeting when they were up in town, because they both live out of the area. And we had her sign a document for us that allowed us, if I see anything unusual with her behavior, that I can share that with them and bring it to their attention. And I said, it's also a good practice at that point that when possible, that one of you attends the meeting. So that as we do our reviews, that I have a lot of children that come with particularly their moms, and one or two cases the dad. So that happens. And on the other side of the fence, I've had people come in their 50s, let's say late 50s. I ask about their parents. They say, I don't know what my parents were thinking. We have no idea what happened. We understood they had a lot of money. It's all gone. It's all gone. And how does that happen? They could have used it for healthcare because they didn't plan. But in some instances, I had one client, she's flying back and forth to Florida to address an issue where the dad, the widower, befriended a woman, and he was changing everything that he was putting on her on all the accounts. And he changed the power of attorney to her, and they went and got that changed. So there's a lot of, all the fraud's not cyber. Some of it, actually the majority of the fraud, elder abuse, ironically, is family members. We call them GLBs, greedy little, you can fill in the B, but sometimes that happens. But sometimes it's just bad decisions by them. They lose their ability to reason. So I think that the first thing to do would be, as we refer back to what we use for our clients every age, is create an asset map. You mentioned one, you've got a situation, and it is the rule, basically, versus not the norm, that there's one person handling all of the assets and the other person really just trusts them to do it.
Right.
So
yeah.
They really, the other one doesn't really know what they have, for the most part, where it's at and who handles it. Something like this would be helpful, even the person that's handling it, because things start accumulating. We had one couple where they had 15 different IRA accounts over the years and 401ks. They just never consolidated anything, and then it starts to get out of hand. So this is important for them, that both spouses understand what they have. But this is also good if, as they age, that an adult child, one that very few would share this with all of the kids, that most people don't want them to know what they have in total.
Why is that?
If they know they got the money, they might want some of it now. That's a little piggy bank for them. Maybe they've borrowed in the past. So they might not want them to know everything that's available. I've had one couple where we had a family meeting. We had all the accounts, what stuff is, but we had no numbers. So we said, Mom and Dad have all of these assets. We're not sharing the value of them, just letting you know that they have a nice estate. And here's what we're thinking going forward. They just wanted them to have an idea. But sometimes there'll be one adult child, specifically the executor of the estate, because the executors or the trustee, the executors, and those that are listed on the power of attorney are usually different people for the living will and things like that. They're usually different. They usually want to have all of the children involved somehow, whether it be for selling the estate or making decisions. And it could be like the living will, it could be all the children listed on there, but they usually divvy that up so that nobody feels excluded. But there's usually going to be one that's going to handle the estate, the one that they feel is the best in doing this. And this would be helpful to share with them. Since of any of that, Ed, I think having a copy of this, at least with the will.
Yeah.
So at least they can, because people in their 80s, 90s, they're from that generation, you'll see money underneath, hidden inside the bureau, taped to the bottom of a drawer, stuff like that. It's hidden all over the place. You don't know where it's at. Now, I don't know if you're going to put that on the asset map. That'd be something to share with, and they might not want them to know where it is, and especially if they have a key to the house. It's just, that's the way they think. So
how do you step in and help at this point? So how do you help the families?
if I'm working with the parents, then I have those conversations with them, what I recommend they should be doing.
Got it.
If I'm just working with the adult children, then I'm going to ask for an introduction to their parents to be able to help them create this and then have the conversation with both parties. That makes it easier. In absence of that, I can share with them some tools, which I'll show you today, that they can use with their parents to have that conversation themselves. But it's always easier. And you can see up top, it's good too if the family knows who are these other trusted advisors. And we could put more information here. This is a sample of their names and contact information and such. Because if something were to happen, does everybody watching this know who their parents' CPA, estate planning attorney, or financial advisor?
One of the questions that I've got here is, this is awesome. This organization like this is great because everybody needs to be on the same page. The clarity of everybody being on the same page and knowing what's there. I'm curious, what are the consequences of not having something like this put together?
Stuff gets missed. I've had people call me up and say, how can we find out if my dad had a life insurance policy? They don't know. They have no idea. If they think he had one, he might have talked about it at some point. Might have said, mom will be fine. And then they find out she's got no money. Maybe it was life insurance. And there is a way we can find out. It costs a little bit of money, but not much. But we can find out if there was a life insurance policy. With banks, that generation, for the most part, would change banks for 0.25%. So, like, where's the money trail? Like, where's the money at? So it becomes more difficult that way to track old statements and old past books that are sitting in their drawers and stuff like that. It takes time, and that's why it could take some time to settle the estate, more than it should be. Probate in most states is very easy if everything's organized and very inexpensive. But if you don't know where stuff is, you don't have everything, then that's
you really
can't settle the estate.
One of the big issues that I see is that, okay, you can have power of attorney, like, the parents can grant power of attorney, but if you don't know what's there and where everything is, the power of attorney is not really going to help you because you don't know you don't know where anything is or what there is.
And sometimes some people get things organized and they do their own little books put together, which is awesome, but they're few and far between. Most people, you're going to have a drawer of stuff. Go through, you have to file cabinets of stuff, and you got to go out and figure where it's at. I was even working with my parents, and we found out after my mom passed away, we're finding cash hidden in the house, and not a little bit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. I don't think you have to go tearing out sheetrock or anything. I don't think any of them they're going to have hidden spaces, but it's going to be in there somewhere. So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
I'll refer to this briefly. This are key elements of a comprehensive plan. If we're working with their clients, we're working with them, we're addressing all these issues. And some, as I tell people, some are relevant now, some will come up along the way, and some may never come up. But we're looking at all of these as a comprehensive financial planning arrangement, not just a investment advisor or an attorney or a CPA working in their own silos. We're looking across the board. Even though we can't do wills, I don't want to do taxes, we're familiar with those things and can help them with that. So things along the way here, when you look at estate planning and such, you'd be surprised how many people don't even have a will. Successful people don't even have a will. And so do you have a will? Do you have a power of attorney? Is there a living will, the right to die? Like, what happens now? What happens? What do the parents, what do they want to have? Is there a healthcare proxy to help make those decisions? Are there any trusts, things like that?
That's amazing that there's some wealthy people out there that don't have wills. And why is that? Do they think they're going to live forever?
Yeah, there's plenty of time. I don't need to. And here's the other thing. You're talking about something they don't want to talk about.
Right.
They don't want to have happen. So they keep putting it off until it's crisis planning. One thing to look at in this column here for elderly parents is make sure it's an elder law attorney, somebody that deals in elder law. It's a specialty. You don't want to just pick anybody out of the yellow pages or somebody that handled your daughter's auto accident. You want to make sure it's an elder law attorney that is trained in these type of areas and what to do, because they can be worth their weight in gold, and we're helping with the family address issues, especially if one person gets sick. People say, I'll just give my money away to my kids. And the nursing home Medicaid won't take anything. I'll give it away to the kid. No, you won't, because you're not going to get, because if there's a 60-month look back for that, right? 5 years. Nobody's giving their money away when they're healthy to the kids. Who would do that? You need the money, you're healthy, you're going to enjoy it. So when you're going to want to do it is when it's likely too late. So you need an elder law attorney to help you manage and maneuver through that myriad of things you need to.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah. Also things like over here, this mortgage review. Let me just tell you something briefly, becoming more and more popular. And it all started with people who really were out of money and needed what's called a reverse mortgage. And they needed it for income, which is fine. That generation was taught, I call them it's the Depression attitude. You and I are children of the Great Depression, meaning our parents were kids during the Great Depression. So we know the stories, we've heard them. Our kids don't know the stories because we don't tell them. It doesn't keep going down further than us,
right?
For the most part. So what their thinking is different. The thinking was to put all the money in the bank and pay off the mortgage. But the problem was that interest rates in the banks couldn't compete with those that had investments in the market in stocks and bonds. So they may not have accumulated as much wealth as they thought they would, but they got a paid off home. So now they need more income because they're running out of money. Where you used to get 10% on a CD, you got 1%. That's a huge difference as you age. So they had to go tap the equity in the home. What we're recommending for people now, of all means, is a reverse line of credit, possibly, where you just, let's say that you got $1 million home, or let's make it more reasonable. Let's say it's a $500,000 home, and let's say you could get half of that as a reverse line of credit. It's $250,000 sitting on standby. Now, you're not making a payment on it. You didn't take it. It's a reverse line of credit. Unlike a regular line of credit, the banks can't shut this off. They shut them off in 2000 through 2002. They shut them off in 2008. You couldn't get them. They wouldn't let you access it. That's not an issue with a reverse line of credit. So when a reverse line of credit's sitting there, now current interest rates are 7% on those. It's growing. It grows while it sits there. So there's a rule of 72 that every 10 years, money doubles at 7%, basically. So the 250 in 10 years is 500. In another 10 years, it's $1 million. So why would you need that? If people get sick, where do they want to go? They want to go to a nursing home post-COVID, or they want to stay in their home? They want to stay in the home. If you've got money or insurance, you can do that. But if majority of your equity is in the home, then you can't get it out when you need it as a crisis like that. So majority of the people in nursing homes are, there's a lot of people there through Medicaid. They didn't go there because they wanted to. They had insurance or their own money. They went there because they had to. So people want to stay in their home. In order to stay in the home, you need either insurance or money. So why not set that up as an emergency fund that you can stay in the home? Because look, if you go to Medicaid, you go to a nursing home, you go through Medicaid, every state has an estate recovery act. So they're going to recover the money from the home before it's sold. But you spend time in a nursing home. Why not use the same money that they're going to take eventually anyway, but use it to stay in your home?
Yeah.
And this is the thinking. You just have to have these conversations with people ahead of time. Crisis planning, you lose options. If you wait till you're in crisis mode, a lot of the options will disappear. They're not, you're not eligible to do them. So it's important to address these things ahead of time. And if we're dealing with just their adult children, you can see here, we address it. We address it with them. We're trying to get ahead of the curve with them. So these are some resources that we have available for people. What issues to consider for my aging parents? Cash flow living arrangements. Do they need assistance in managing their bills? Are there sources of income that you're unaware of? What about somebody gets sick, reduced mobility, they're unable to live on their own? Estate planning issues. I mentioned get to an elder law attorney and let them address some of these things. But these are things that you can at least to get a little, we try and give people a little information before they meet them so they can talk intelligently with these advisors. And we offer clients of ours, we even offer to attend the meetings with them. Because we know the situation for the client. We likely know the estate planning attorney. I'm past president of State Planning Council of Southern New Jersey, so I likely know who they're talking to. And if we referred them, we certainly do. It would be good to have somebody like that in on the meeting if necessary. You can see some of these.
Yeah, all this is really important stuff. How would somebody get access to this? Can they call you and have you email it to them, or how do you?
Sure.
How could you communicate this information to somebody? This is really valuable.
Yeah, we have these in an email format. We have them in. Yes. Yeah, we could do that PDF. It's not a problem. We like to be a resource for this and then possibly establish a relationship with them. But we got other ones here for different topics, as you can see. What issue should I consider if my spouse has been diagnosed with a terminal illness? All of a sudden, now, what do I need to start doing? Because how much time is there? There may not be a lot of time left. What should I consider if one of my parents passed away? Hopefully, there's one still living, but if the last one passed away and none of this was addressed, there's still issues to consider that you should be aware of. And what issues should I consider when purchasing long-term care insurance? Can they get long-term care insurance? People say it's expensive. Insuring a Maserati is more expensive than a Hyundai, right? So the reason it's expensive is the cost is so high. And so how do you address it? Here's the thing. Nobody wants to go into a nursing home anyway. So they want to stay in their home. So what we work with our clients on is ensuring staying in the home. And it's not much more for assisted living. So we can insure home care and assisted living. Yeah, percentage of that will go towards a nursing home, but you don't want to go there anyway. So why insure it? It's like getting a Hyundai and insuring it like a Maserati. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Also, there's different ways of insuring the event through assets or through life insurance now. Life insurance policies will allow you to access the death benefit while you're living if you have the right kind. So we can talk about that.
This is so valuable. I love this because this really, you need to answer these questions. You have to know the questions to ask. You have to answer the questions before you even address what the plan is going to be.
Yeah. And we can attach these to the video as downloadable PDFs too for people. So that that'd be helpful. One or two more here. Am I at risk having my identity stolen or being a cyber victim? Most, and let's not talk about cyber only. The majority of elder abuse is family members. It's shocking, but
That's so interesting.
yeah, so it's helpful to know what's going on. Maybe if one adult child seems to be a little bit possessive of that, it could cause that could be a problem. That's why when I had my client this afternoon come in, I had both daughters come in. They happened to both be in from out of town. I said, let's get them both. And now one was going to handle everything. And it was interesting, their dynamics between the two of them, watching how that was handled. But there's usually one that's the one that takes charge, but then we'll share it with the other.
That's a very interesting point. And I've heard some stories from people that I know where their brothers or sisters, they all got along great. And then when the money was on the table, things changed.
Yeah. So we're talking reading of the will, right? And settling the estate. And you find out that more was left to one child than the other one, or the dynamics within the family saying, Ed, you're the successful brother. Us two sisters have not done as well. Instead of splitting up, we should get more than you. Those questions, those things come up. It's weird. It's funny. You can't figure, you can't plan for how people think and justify it in their minds that they're right. So it's important if mom and dad have this all spelled out properly. And here's the thing too. If they're going, I tell my clients, you don't have to treat everybody equally, but you may want to treat them fairly.
Right.
So if there is a child that could need more support, and that's what you want to do in your will, explain it. If not ahead of time in the will, just a little letter in there saying why you're doing this.
Yeah. Very good point.
Or helpful.
Very good point. Yeah.
And then the last here, what issue should I consider before closing the estate? So it's all done. So that's things we were just talking about a minute ago. Could be helpful for the executor and the other children, just to see.
Yeah.
706 is their final tax return.
Oh, the final tax return. Whoever thought of that?
706, the last one. Yeah, that's.
Oh my gosh, I never even thought of that. The final tax return. That's interesting.
And then is there inheritance tax? In New Jersey, there's not an inheritance tax, but there is in Pennsylvania. Now, here's the other thing. Some people will have multiple homes. So with multiple homes, and especially post-COVID, they could have a home in Pennsylvania and one in Florida. And what happens then in settling the estate? You got to settle it in two states. One is more difficult for probate, which is Florida, but not more so than Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has an inheritance tax. I said New Jersey doesn't. Florida doesn't. So these are issues that becomes more challenging for the executor. A lot of times living trusts have been oversold, especially if you only live in one state. But if you've got property in multiple states, a living trust is more than likely the document over a will. Now, you still get a will. It's called a pour-over will. You're still going to get a will. But the living trust would be an umbrella over all the estate, both states, all the assets. So that's important. These are issues to deal with an elder law attorney. We can just we give them an idea of things they should be talking to them about, which is very helpful. But then to get those documents, they need them to see them. And then we take those documents. We have a resource that we take those and documents that are written by attorneys for attorneys. We take those and put them into a nice, easy graphic flow chart of if this, then that. If this happens, then here's how it goes. So it's easy for them to understand. Like here's the asset, who gets it in this situation, who gets it in that situation, and what happens afterwards. So they say, oh, this is awesome. I can understand what they just wrote.
Yeah. This is a topic that really anybody, who's over 50 should be watching this video. This is really valuable.
Yeah.
There's a lot to know and a lot of problems that can be avoided by following a plan you just laid out here and answering the right questions.
Yeah. Remember what I said, crisis, when you get into crisis mode, you lose options. So like anything, planning ahead of time is way better. You're not at the 10-yard line and it's 4th and 1, you know?
Very good point. Very
Okay?
good point. All
Yeah.
right, super. This is great. This is a great conversation. I can see how we could turn this into more conversations like this, because this is a really important topic that affects a lot of people, and you don't know how it's going to affect people emotionally. You don't know how people are going to change when you're faced with situations like this, because some people, in a marriage, you've got a husband and wife, they're in their late 80s. One has been taking care of the finances forever, the other hasn't. And when something changes, one person dies or they get sick or whatever, you don't know the state of mind of the other. So
Right.
you can't anticipate really until you're there. So interesting topic. So
Yeah, good stuff.
anyway, thank you for this, Marty. This was fantastic. And I guess anybody that, if you're watching this, start out by reaching out to Marty directly to get these checklists and get started.
Yeah, we'd be happy to help.
Thanks, Marty.